What's up, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Boost Your Biology podcast. I'm your host, Lucas, and I'm really excited yet again for another episode because today we are going to be talking about nootropics, otherwise known as cognitive enhancers, also known as smart drugs. Uh, it goes by many names. There is an official definition for what a nootropic actually is. But to put it simply, essentially, all you need to understand is that nootropics are basically, it's a category of supplements, herbs, compounds, drugs, things, anything that can basically improve cognition. So that can be improve focus, improve motivation, improve memory, um, or even reduce anxiety as well. So, of course, there are many nootropics out there on the market. You know, you've got pre-made stacks, which means that they are basically formulas where they use a combination of ingredients into one product versus just standalone ingredients, which is what I enjoy experimenting with more so than comprehensive stacks. So I guess we can start out by giving you guys a little bit of a snapshot into what nootropics have done for me in the past 7 years of usage. I mean, I've been on and off various compounds over the years, although there are some that are like absolute staples that I will always sort of resort to. Um, so I guess I'll start out by explaining how they've, made an impact on my life. And the first category or first key area that they've really supported me with is they've really helped me reduce procrastination. I mean, if you looked at me about 5 years ago, I was very, I was motivated, but things were a little bit difficult to start. I just found things, for example, with university assignments or cleaning my room or things like that. I always found that to be a little bit of a challenge to get going. Whereas now that has completely changed. Like my ability to start a task has improved so much, and there's less like procrastination. I don't dwell on things. I just move forward, and I really do believe that, there's one key nootropic that has enabled me to do that. Um, and it's allowed me to sort of stay more focused, more disciplined. Um, but then again, there's a whole other side to nootropics that I've found a lot of benefit from, and that is like socially. So what I mean by that is there have been so many times where I've formulated particular stacks or, I've combined particular ingredients, and they've made me super confident socially. And when I say confident, I mean like absolutely no inhibitions, like extremely, it's like almost, it's almost like whatever comes to my mind, I'll just say it. There's zero time spent in your head. And I know a lot of you probably listening in have struggled with being stuck in your own head, and that's like inhibited you from saying what you really wanted to say. I've been there before. I remember what that was like. It's not a nice feeling because it's so limiting, and it can really just um, take away from the moment. And then when you're finished, let's say you've been at a party or whatever, and you've come back, or and you realize you could have said this in a different way, or you could have been a bit more cheeky about it. That's where I think nootropics can really shine, and they have for me. There've been many times socially where even my friends around me have been like, "You're so funny," or "You're so," like you crack jokes that are just completely like just super, super hilarious. You say things that are like super, super, like very witty, very sharp. Um, Things just roll off your tongue real smoothly. Um, it's almost like you're in a flow state, but your everything just comes so easily. The words just fly out of your mouth. You don't have to really think about what you're going to say. I mean, I don't know how many of you can relate to that, but I'm sure either when you've been drunk or, consumed something else to bump up your confidence, yeah, that does feel good. But the whole point to this is that what I'm tapping into, what I'm using is actually sustainable. Whereas resorting to illicit drugs, cocaine, alcohol, weed, marijuana, things like that, they're definitely not sustainable. Those things are going to, you know, lower your baseline over time. And the more and more you use them, the more tolerance you get. Um, you're going to be doing potential damage as well. So you're actually causing neurodegeneration. Whereas with nootropics, the benefit is that they actually have compounding benefits over time. Um, and some of them even have reverse tolerance as well. So you can keep using it, still get the same effect. Some of them even have, I just mentioned, well, the reverse tolerance is basically where that same dose is actually more powerful over time. So the strength of the effects on day one are very different, actually weaker than the effects that you experience on um, day 7. So usually things like caffeine. I mean, I'm sure many of you can relate to this, is where, like, you use caffeine. The first time you use it, it's pretty awesome. You get that boost in energy, that boost in focus. Whereas, like, over time, you use that day to day, back to back, you eventually don't respond to it, and it no longer gives you that boost, that dopamine kick, that confidence boost that you're looking for. And that's where I really do believe that nootropics can sort of fill that void in a sense. And they certainly have for me and clients that I've worked with as well. So I definitely do believe that nootropics like they can serve a purpose in social occasions, going out, um, or, to parties, to, places where you might feel slightly anxious, or even job interviews. That's another one. There's key neurotransmitters that we can absolutely take control of and hack, um, to give us what we're looking for, to give us the confidence, the clarity, the focus. But again, this always comes back to individuality, because what works for me may not work for you. And that is where it's really important that you have extremely good self-awareness. And even while you're under the influence of nootropics, it's really important that you monitor how you're behaving, like your behaviors, because there have been many times when, I've formulated particular stacks where I feel supercharged, super loud and confident, but at the same time, it's sort of not robbed my humble, not really like that, but it's sort of maybe come across as a little bit arrogant. So you have to be aware of that, because these things can highly influence your personality, and even at times they've actually hijacked my personality. And that's where the whole, this whole realm of cosmetic neurology that I love to explore. And in particular, I really love the idea of personality hacking, um, because I do believe that we can strongly influence our personality and our key traits. Like you may have particular idiosyncrasies or things that you do that you're doing often that you may want to eliminate, or like there's certain words that you use or particular ways that you feel that you want to eliminate. For example, maybe the best example that I can think of is that when you're out socially, you're too stuck in your own head or you're too serious. That's another one. I used to be extremely serious and sort of uptight and tense socially, like with that anxiety. But that's honestly, that's dissipated. I mean, I experience it every now and then, but I know what's going on from a neurotransmitter point of view. I know what's going on like from a physiological point of view. And when you know what's going on, you can take control of that. And that is super empowering. And I hope that you can also relate and you can see the benefit in doing so. Because I look at things like you've only got one chance to sort of, I guess, prove yourself. And I can't remember the exact statistic, but I think it was like people judge you within 4 seconds of meeting you. And if you're, let's say, for example, you're going in for a job interview or you're trying to impress someone, if you are not on point or, you know, you've failed to, you just allowed the everyday self to just be. And for some people, sometimes the everyday self is just, it may not be appropriate for that sort of environment. So the way I look at it is, well, if you know how certain nootropics or certain compounds make you act, then why not merge both of those and apply what you know about your physiology? So that's the individuality. Plus, you're then merging what the research says on how particular nootropics affect neurotransmitters, and then apply that to the specific situation. Because then you're getting literally the triple spread. You're getting the best of both, all three worlds, where you know that you're going to show up and feel a certain way and act a certain way. It's almost, it sounds robotic. I know it sounds quite maybe a little bit too robotic or high tech or not human, but you can say that. I mean, there's probably people saying that you're not human, Lucas. Like you're weird. But life is too short. Life is too short to feel not how you want to feel. And this is where I think nootropics really do serve a purpose, and how they've really helped me, you know, but like career-wise, and also even consulting and like as a naturopath, being able to hold space and build that rapport with your clients. Like that requires obviously high level of self-awareness, but then also the right neurotransmitters and physiological makeup to even be able to behave like that. So that's pretty much how nootropics have, you know, influenced my life. And I wanted to, you know, give you that as a little bit of a foundation into, you know, how they can benefit you, and even how they've benefited people around me in my life who I've worked with, or friends and things like that. So I guess we can have a look at who uses nootropics. So who are what type of person is leveraging and taking advantage of nootropics? Well, when we look at that question, ultimately it's those that want to be high performers, those that want to be at the best of their game all the time. That can be athletes, you know, a lot of pressure being an athlete, a lot of pressure being a corporate worker. So high pressure jobs, nootropics can be extremely advantageous. High stress jobs, people that want to reduce anxiety. So even some comedians, um, students as well. So that's another big one, is that because nootropics technically should preserve cognition and also enhance memory and learning, students definitely benefit from using nootropics. And I know I definitely tapped into them when I was, whilst I study, or when I'm trying to solidify particular information, or, there are compounds that I've used in the past that have significantly increased my reading speed and also my comprehension abilities as well. So I guess you can look at nootropics as basically just tools. That's a really good way to think of it. So obviously, as a naturopath, we understand that in order to be high performing or to feel your best, you really need to hone in on and make sure that you're optimizing all aspects of your lifestyle. So, getting your sleep in check, getting your exercise in, getting, sufficient nutrients, things like that, they are way more essential and have a bigger impact on how you feel than nootropics. So I look at nootropics as basically the icing on the cake. And if you're getting all those areas, you're laying them quite well and you're able to execute on those other areas, then that's where I think nootropics can be highly beneficial. They can, literally be the icing on the cake and give you that extra 20% boost that you're seeking. And they can really help you take your performance to the next level. I'm saying mentally, but even physically as well. For athletes in particular. So when we look at nootropics, I guess it's important for us to understand that not all nootropics are created equal. So when we have a look at the mechanism of action, so how they actually work, not all nootropics work in the same way. Having said that, there are a lot of nootropics that have crossover effects, or they have a similar mechanism of action. So, for example, the herb bacopa, and also, let's say, rhodiola. So these are two pretty well-known nootropics. They both do share the ability to increase acetylcholine. And they both share the ability to do that through inhibiting the enzyme acetylcholine esterase. So yes, they have a similar and a shared mechanism. However, bacopa, on the other hand, also influences a variety of serotonin receptors, and even, modulates the GABA receptors as well. So when we look at these compounds, it's important to understand that you're trying to match your neurotransmitter makeup with what the compound can offer you. And what I've seen in the past, predominantly what I've seen is that most people tend to respond best to compounds that do the following: that increase dopamine. And that is why I'll be talking about dopamine a lot. And I've got a wide variety of compounds that can support dopamine. So compounds that support dopamine, nootropics that also support GABA, and nootropics that mildly influence acetylcholine. These are the three key neurotransmitters which I believe 80% of people will see benefit from. Whereas those that actually increase serotonin, they're sort of hit and miss, because they actually can be problematic for some individuals. So I guess it always comes back to, without us having the technology to be able to measure, our neurotransmitters, it really the next best thing that we can do is to track how we feel, is to monitor how we feel, is to take a step back and audit yourself. See if you can figure out, is this compound, is this nootropic good for me or not? Because there have been so many nootropics, for example, that I've experimented with over time, that I've sort of looked back on them and thought, geez, that really didn't fit my makeup, my neurotransmitter makeup. There were so many things about that compound that I didn't like. For example, ashwagandha. The whole ashwagandha, um, frustration. I've written a whole article on ashwagandha, which you guys can literally just search ashwagandha anhedonia, which means inability to experience pleasure. That compound robbed me of my ability to experience pleasure for a long time. And only in the last, few months or 6 months have I been able to sort of reverse those negative effects. Thank God. So we've just spoken about, how nootropics work, how they're categorized. So, we can break it down into natural versus synthetic. And then you've got the category in the middle. So adaptogens, and then you've got research chemicals, and there's other categories as well, such as eugeroics, which are like things that improve wakefulness. So a good example of that would be modafinil. However, modafinil, in my opinion, is just another nootropic that is not sustainable. Definitely not sustainable. So yeah, it's important to realize that they can be categorized based on their effects. So for example, let's have a look at, for example, anxiolytic. So anxiety reducing nootropics. So that would be things like taurine, gastrodon, Eclonia cava, potentially L-theanine, lemon balm, gotu kola. These are all just on top of my head, different compounds that can be anxiolytic and nootropic at the same time. So I guess we'll sort of segue onto some common nootropic mistakes. So when we, look at some of the key mistakes that people make with nootropics, I would say the first mistake that I see all too often in people trying to or entering into the whole nootropic space is that they start out with too many compounds, too many nootropics. They're basically doing a all or nothing approach and thinking that more is better. And that is absolutely not the case. You need to be able to figure out how you respond to particular nootropics on their own first. Give them a singular evaluation, and then you can get fancy and technical and sophisticated by stacking them together. So try not to get carried away with wanting to do everything all at once. It's important to start slow. And the other point that I'm going to segue onto is overdosing and using too high of a dose. So a great example of this is people that use acetylcholine boosting compounds. So for example, either CDP choline, alpha GPC, or choline bitartrate. The most common mistake that I see with them and with those compounds is people don't understand the fact that these compounds have very long half-lives, and they can build up over time. And time again, I've seen so many people report feeling depressed and a really flat mood when they've overdone it or they've overdosed on acetylcholine boosting compounds, or they've also stacked it with something that inhibits the breakdown of acetylcholine, and then they've got this acetylcholine overload, which from my experience and from a lot of other people's experience does not feel good at all. Um, the acetylcholine overload feeling is, you just feel flat. You feel not inspired. It sort of blunts rewards a little bit. It can be anxiety inducing as well. So that's just another example of a key mistake that people make with nootropics. And I guess the third one would be that people choose unreliable vendors. So they, as in like the quality of the nootropic that they're using is poor, or it may not even be what they've ordered. So that's why it's really important to select a useful vendor for these, because again, a lot of these are actually research chemicals, and you need to make sure that what you're getting is what's labeled. Because one of my friends, for example, ordered heaps of taurine and decided to send it off to a laboratory to get checked. And it turned out that it was actually laced with benzodiazepines. So that's pretty scary. Like, you need to make sure, the compounds that you're ordering are actually what they claim to be. So some of the other things that we should discuss are the side effects of nootropics, and there definitely are side effects. So there's no such thing as a free lunch. A great example of this would be compounds that you're using to make up for sleep deprivation. Um, so of course there's going to be side effects related to those compounds, because you're borrowing from tomorrow to have today. So stimulants fit this category perfectly, because they're basically making up for your deficit, your poor sleep, and they're sort of filling that gap. And whilst that can be good every now and then, if you're continuously doing that over time, you're going to end up depleting your whole body. You're going to be running into adrenal fatigue or adrenal insufficiency symptoms, and it's going to be a long battle, a long trek on your way back up just to get back to baseline. And there's been a few guys that I've worked with, I've consulted to sort of help them come back online and to feel good just at baseline. But that's taken months of one-on-one coaching, months of using specific compounds to help resensitize their dopamine receptors and things like that. So it's a dangerous game to play if you're going to be using compounds like modafinil or other powerful stimulants to make up for sleep deprivation. So let's sort of branch off and discuss some of the future uses of nootropics. And this is something that, it really excites me, because, I see a future where nootropics are absolutely just staples in people's lives. And that's because the environment that we live in, and I've said this time and time again, is not the same. We are bombarded by pollution, toxins, heavy metals, things that can affect the brain, things that can damage our, neuronal health and compromise our neurotransmitters. And that is why I believe that nootropics are not only boosting people above their baseline, but they're actually just helping people. Sorry, excuse me. They're just helping people get back to what they should be like in a state where there's no chemical insults, where there's no magnesium deficiency is not where there's no issues with magnesium deficiency, things like that. It makes me wonder, people that respond really well to these GABA-based nootropics, are they just magnesium deficient? And if they just ate really well with a diet that gave them all the nutrients they needed, well, maybe they wouldn't need nootropics. But that's not the case anymore. And I really do believe that 95% of people can benefit from nootropics. The strategic implementation of nootropics with sufficient cycling strategies to support their overall lifestyle. I do believe that they can be game changing, and I've seen it before. I've seen it happen before, and it is a massive passion of mine, and I will never stop researching nootropics. I've been researching them for 7 years. I've been experimenting with them for over 7 years. And I really like how they've sort of left my brain. I like what they've helped me achieve. But I've also disliked some of the side effects that some of them have brought. So again, I'm trying to look at it from both sides. They're not this holy grail, be all and end all, solution to your struggles. They're just yet another tool that we can, take advantage of to improve our well-being. So that pretty much wraps up today's episode. I will end by saying that hopefully by the time that this podcast is live, I will have launched my Nootropics webinar. It'll be a bit more in depth on the things that I've covered today, with a more focus on compounds that I haven't mentioned in today's podcast. But yeah, hopefully, if you guys are interested in learning more about nootropics, that will be found on my website, ergogenichealth.com.au. That will be, like a free 30-minute masterclass talking about nootropics, and then I'll eventually design the 3-hour-long advanced masterclass where you guys can learn a lot more about specific nootropic stacks to experiment with. But ultimately, if anyone wants to, personally work with me to help construct and design stacks for them, for whatever their goals may be, if you want support with building out a dopamine-based stack or an anxiolytic or a party stack, I will be doing consulting, and I already am doing consulting. I'm not really announcing it very publicly yet, but hopefully at the time of this podcast, there will be somewhere where you guys can quickly and easily book in a consultation with me to work with me one-on-one, and where you guys can leverage my 7 years of experience, mistakes, and benefits, so that you don't make the same mistakes, and so that I can now, which is my passion, upgrade your lifestyle. So thank you for listening in today. Hopefully you got a chance to gain something new about nootropics, and I am super excited for the next episode. So thanks everyone, and I will see you soon. Thank you everyone for joining in to today's episode. For in-depth show notes and lessons learned, visit nofilter.media/ boost your biology.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.